Hello everyone, so welcome to my another video. So in this video we're going to talk about context API and props drilling in ReactJS. So, so just before starting, we will try to understand what is a props drilling before we move to the context API. Okay. So let's take an example. Like let's say you have like three components. Right? So you have component A, then component B, and component C. Okay, and let's say if you have your component A is your parent component. Okay, so from component A you are calling the component B, and from component B you are calling component C. Okay, and then this is your component C, and then let's say you are like printing some name here. Okay, so if this is your scenario, so you have three components. So component A is a parent component, and let's say you have component you're calling the component B from component A, then component C from component B. And let's say if you want to pass some data from A to C, right? So how you will do it? So from the component A, when you call the component B, let's say you pass a property name equal to mark, right? And then the property you will get the property here, right? And name equal to the component B will pass that data again, which it receives a property, right? Props.name. And then if you pass it like this, when you call the component C, then the component C will get the props.component props.name. It will get the data, the mark, right? So basically you pass it to B, and then B just passes it to C. Okay, so here in this case, right, so let's say if you want to pass the data from A to C, even if the component B doesn't even have to know about the data, right, it doesn't have to know about the data, still you have to pass it to B, and then B has to take the data and then pass it to C when it is calling C, right? So basically this is called a props drilling. So this is a simple scenario, like three components. Let's say if you have like a tree of like 10 components from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, right? And if you want to pass some data from A to J, right, component A to component J, so what will happen is you have to pass from A to B, B to C, C to D, all those stuff, right? So even if the components in between doesn't even have to know about the data, still it has to get the data from the previous component and pass it to the next component. So this is called, actually this is what is called actually the props drilling. Okay, and in order to avoid the props drilling, we have a concept called the context API. Okay, and that is what we want to discuss today. So let's create a simple component. So I'll create a folder, components. I'll create a file, parents.js. Okay. So now I'm going to create this parent component here. Parent component return, it's just returning some data, let's assume. Okay, I am parent component. Okay, and if you go to parent or app.js, we're just importing this. And by the way, this parent, this application was just a base application, doesn't have anything. So in the app.js, it just displays I'm from app.js. So if you run the application, it just shows this table, I'm from app.js. Okay, so I'm going to import this parent here, parent from components, and then parent. Okay, and I'm calling this parent component here. Okay, so what will happen is if you call the parent, I'm from parent component, so you'll just show this label, I'm from parent component. Okay, so okay, I missed the export default again, export default parent. Okay. So now it shows that I am from parent component. Okay, now what we will do is we'll create another component. Let's say export, I'm just exporting here, export const child equal to, I'm creating a child component. Okay, and then I'm returning just a div, and then okay, just a div, and let's say if I'm creating another component with export const grandchild. So let's assume that I get some data from in the parent component, and then I want to pass the data all the way from parent to the grandchild. So parent will be calling this child component, and child will be calling the grandchild component. Okay, so in this case, right, so what I will do is I will just invoke the child name equal to mark, right, and then the child will get the mark, the name, and then it calls the grandchild, and then name equal to mark. Then here if you go, let's see if it gets from the properties, props dot name, and then it gets the data here, the props. So it gets the data div. If I put the div, and then name is props dot name. So what I did was I just initialized the name mark in the parent component, and I passed it to the child, and then child is passing the data into the grandchild. So let's see how it works. I can see this grandchild is showing name mark, right? So how it worked was, as we explained before, it's just that it has to pass it to the child, and then child has to pass it to the grandchild. So in this case, right, so child don't have to know about this property at all. Still, it has to take that value and then pass it to the grandchild. So context API basically helps to avoid this props drilling. Okay. So we have to know about two functions or two APIs for this. So first is the create context, and next is the use context. Okay. So let's create a context for this. Const context equal to react dot context, so create context. So let me import react here, react from react. Okay, so we have the context created here, and what we can do here is you come here, and then when you create a context provider here, okay, and wrap your component inside this child. So if you do like this, what will happen is every single component which is wrapped inside this provider will get the data, whatever you're passing the value, right? So now let's say if I'm passing this mark, right? So whatever value that you're passing or that you're setting this mark will be every single element or component which you wrap inside this context provider will get this value. Okay, so let's see how it works. So I'm just removing this. Okay, so I'm wrapping this child, and I'm using the provider like value to mark, and then I'm wrapping the child. Okay, so child will, again, it just calling the grandchild. Okay, so grandchild here, let's say in this case though, I want to the grandchild has to get this value, right? So here, as you see, the child component is not even passing the data. The value is actually, the data is actually bound to the context provider. Okay, so in this case, if you want to get the data here, so what you can do is you just create a context here, and there's a function called use context. Okay, use context of, you can take it from the context that you're passing. So use context is a is so it's already imported, it's part of the React. So use context, you can use it to get the data. Okay, so this is how we get the data. So you see the const context equal to use context of this context. Okay, so here what will happen is, so if you go here, data, if you want to get the data, all you have to do is you just say this context dot value. Sorry, I made a small mistake here, so you don't have to put this value here. We just need to call data of context. So now you refresh the screen, you can see data mark is coming up. So what happened was it was passed from the parent to the child, and the child is calling the grandchild, but still child is not even seeing the data or not even passing the data, but grandchild is able to get the data from the context. Okay, and yeah, so let's say if you have another const data here like this, I have like name set as John, and then age is 30, right? Then you can pass the data here, so you can pass the data here like this, and then you can get both the data like here. So context will have both the name and the age, right? So if you want to get the age, context.age will get you the data is 30, and then if you change it to name is John. Okay, so this is how I can avoid the props drilling using the context API. So you just need to create context. You create a context, and then you create a context provider and wrap your component inside the context provider, and then you can get the context using use context, and then so that's how it works. So I hope you learned something from this tutorial. If yes, please do subscribe to my channel, and then share this video and hit like button and provide a comment, and then we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.